There we have pigs making good use of the mud. I'm pretty eager to see what this pond is going to look like in a few days, in a week, and in a few weeks, really to see what kind of work they're going to be able to do here, see if they're going to be able to actually make this thing hold water again. Hi everyone, this is Andrew at Plainview Farm, and that was me about a year ago. And those pigs in that video were right out here in the middle of this pond. So the question is, did those pigs seal this pond? No. No, they did not. But it's not as if they didn't try. Actually, the deck was somewhat stacked against them. This pond was full of muck. There were several years worth of dirt and just mud and junk that had collected in the pond, as it does, as the banks of a pond erode, as the water pours into the pond whenever the rains come. You're gonna get some collection of I guess what you'd call silt, other muck, that kind of stuff down in the bottom of a pond. And this pond had been here long enough that it probably had 4 feet or better of muck in the bottom of the pond. So those pigs, they got down in the pond and they tried to wallow around. They actually made themselves a nice little wallow that did hold water right in the center of the pond, but they just weren't up to the job simply because there wasn't enough of them. I honestly do believe that they probably could have sealed this pond up with all of that stuff in the bottom of it if I had had enough pigs. I think they probably could have packed it down good and tight and done what I wanted them to do. But like I said, the problem was that there wasn't enough pigs at the end of the day. So ultimately what I ended up having to do was scrape out the pond, scrape all of that muck and that dirt and silt out of the bottom of that pond. And this pile right here behind me is one of the results of that. I actually ended up using the pond scrapings to fill in some areas, use it as fill dirt. I also ended up with another pile that's slightly larger than this one, which is right behind you over here that I'll show you. So this is the second pile that came out of that pond. And once again, that's the first one over there. So you have to be careful with pond scrapings, how you use them, because pond scrapings tend to be dead soil, meaning that there's nothing there, okay? If you were to put those in a flower bed or a garden bed, they wouldn't grow anything. That soil has been under the water for so long that there's no oxygen in it, there's no nutrients in it, there's just nothing there. Of course, this pond out here was growing grass. There was no water in it. So these pond scrapings I'm not too worried about. Actually, there are weeds growing on them now. So I imagine that there's plenty of nutrition in this soil. Again, if I want to use it to fill in holes in the pasture, those kind of things. All in all, the process of cleaning out this pond took, I don't know, I think about 2 weeks of me working on nights and weekends with my 1948 Farmall M, which I'll post that video at the end of this one if you want to watch me clean out the pond with an old tractor. But it took me, again, working nights and weekends, took me about 2 weeks to get all of this cleaned out. Now, I do not have an estimate. I haven't really measured it. I'm not good at, you know, just looking out and seeing a pile of dirt and being able to tell you how much is there. I'd have to measure it, so I'm not exactly sure how much material I did remove from this pond, but I got it down to red clay, and that's when I stopped digging, pretty much. I tried to just get out what was on top of the original pond base. I did pull out some and try to, I guess, build up a little bit of a layer in some spots, which I'll tell you this, the pond is slowly leaking. I do have a slow leak in this pond. It's holding better than it was after I first got it cleaned out. And one of the reasons for that is the cows have had access to this pond for quite a while now. And the cattle may not do the same job that the pigs would, but they still kind of accomplish the same thing. And I've known many people that have done that in the past. They've been able to get dry ponds to hold water by pinning any kind of livestock around them, because that foot traffic tramples down the pond bank, the dam of the pond, and helps it to seal up any leaks that may exist. Which, one of my problems is just right over here. I probably should have got this taken care of sooner rather than later, but there are still a handful of trees on the pond bank. I cleaned off several of them whenever I was cleaning the pond out, but there's still some trees over here on the pond bank. And if you don't know, trees on a dam or near a pond, on a pond bank, they will draw a lot of water out of that pond with their roots. And those roots not only pull the water out, but again, they also make little cracks and crevices in the pond dam that can allow water to escape. Now, I haven't found any wet spots on the back side of the pond dam, which is a good thing. So that tells me that it's unlikely that I have a major leak that water is getting through back over here. This is actually a fairly low spot on the back side of this pond dam. It's actually probably just about as low as the actual bottom of the pond out there. And honestly too, I don't think I have a leak in the center of the pond, because it will drain down to a certain point and then stop. So I do think it's somewhere up here, higher up on the pond dam. And of course, I've got this large cedar tree right here that it needs to come down. I really want to take it out, taproot and all, but I may not have the equipment to get that done. My tractor, at least so far, hasn't pushed it out of there. I may need to try whenever the soil is nice and wet. That may help, I don't know, but I'm afraid, honestly, those trees, they'll break off. They'll just snap off at the ground. So here's the next question that some people are asking, and that is, well, why aren't you using the pigs? Why are you using the cows instead of the pigs? Well, I do have pigs still, but I don't have enough to really do the job quickly, I guess, is what I'm getting to. I would like to put the pigs in here. If I had a huge group of pigs, I probably would come out here and set up a hot wire and run the pigs off down in the pond and just let them take care of all of it. But at this point, I'm not quite ready to do that. I'm ready to give the cows a chance, see how well they can close up any issues that I'm having, if they can stop any drainage that is currently going on. And if they're unable to do that, of course, I need to clear off all of the trees off of the dam. And then at that point, we will bring some pigs over here and probably let them camp out for a while. But the good news is, other than some basic debris that has just fallen down into the pond as the rains have come along, the water actually looks pretty good. Of course, it looks like pond water, but there's not a big issue with algae or anything like that going on at the present time anyway. So my son is absolutely bound and determined to put fish in this pond, which I can't blame him. I want fish in this pond too. Whenever I was a kid, I fished out of this pond. So naturally, I'd love to see him doing the same thing. But I really want to make sure that it's going to hold water. So we're going to try to give it this year to make sure that the cows are able to get it sealed up, and if pigs as well, I guess, if I have to bring them in. And hopefully next spring we might, cross your fingers, be able to put some fish in this pond. So this property belonged to my grandparents whenever I was a kid, and I would come and fish out of this pond with my brothers or my grandpa, and we would catch bluegill and perch. I think there were maybe even some bass in this pond as well. I honestly can't remember. It's been, well, at least 30 years ago. So as much as 34, 35. Time flies whether you're having fun or not. So this pond is pretty critical to our livestock operation here at Plainview Farm. So that's one of the reasons, or the primary reason, that I wanted to get this pond back up going again, get it holding water like it should. because this is actually the water supply for our cattle off of 1, 2, 3 of the 5 paddocks that we have out here for our rotational grazing system on this side of the property. There's another large paddock that's about 4-5 acres on the north side, and we have to run water into that paddock. There's another pond that also needs to be cleaned out in the other paddock on this side, and then the last one on this side is right next to the well house, so we just run a water tank over there to supply cows with water when they're in that paddock. But like I said, the other 3 on this end of the property, half of the property, the water needs for the cattle, for the livestock, are serviced by this pond right here. So again, it is critical to our ability to graze the cattle the way that we want. So there's one electric fence gate on the far side of the pond that allows cattle to come through off of that single paddock over there. That's kind of an odd shaped paddock that makes up the south end of our property. There's another on the back side of the pond dam that allows them access from where this dirt pile is. And then there's a third gate that allows cattle access to this pond from the central alleyway. So I guess in all reality, this pond could be used to service the water needs of the cattle on 75% of our farm. So I guess that explains why it's so critical that it actually holds water. So if you want to see me clean that pond out with this 1948 Farm All-In, click on this video right here. As always, I appreciate you watching. We'll see you next time.